to share with you his keynote address today.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. Thank you. Program directors, Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwachube, Deputy Minister of Basic Education, Dr. Regina Mhaule, ministers and deputy ministers here present, and the Speaker of our Parliament, Mr. Didiza, MECs and members of Parliament, and representatives of unions who are here, and representatives of business, and representatives of school governing bodies, the Premier of our province, Panyaza Lesufi, and distinguished guests. When I arrived just a few minutes ago, I am met at the entrance by Premier Lesufi and Minister Gwachube and Dr. Mhaule. But as I looked at the Premier, and I do take care when I meet people to look them straight in the eye, and I looked at the Minister, I was trying to see whether there is anything between a warmonger and a war dodger. And I saw no war or conflict amongst them, and my spirits were lifted. So I told them that I have here a warmonger and a war dodger. They both laughed, which is a very good sign as well. And the minister is right, this is one of the highlight moments in my year's calendar, to be here and to share these wonderful moments with you all as teachers of our children. And it is a great honor for me to be amongst the finest men and the finest women of the teaching profession in our country. And I agree with the minister that you all look so dashing. I wondered, I have a fashion or clothes advisor. I sometimes ask, what should I wear today? So I text her, and I said, should I wear a Madiba shirt? She said, no, not today. You're wearing a suit because you are meeting rather serious people who are, and as I can see, well-dressed in your proper teacher clothing, so it's a real joy and pleasure to be amongst you. And I want to congratulate the Department of Basic Education for sustaining the National Teaching Awards. The awards are now in their 24th year, nearly as old as our democracy itself. This enduring commitment, and I want to honor you too, Minister, for having continued, much as you were not part of this in previous years. This is a commitment to honoring our educators, because this speaks to the unique and treasured place that teachers or educators have in the life of our people, in the life of our country. All of us are who we are, all seated here and out there in the public. We are who we are because of the educators, the teachers that we once had. And you are those people today. You are nation builders, and we would like to thank you for the wonderful work that you do to make us proud as a nation. I have the fondest memories of my own teachers at Chilizi Primary School, Sikanontwana Secondary School, in Snawane in Soweto, from Papuli High School, in Sibasa, in Vembe. I remember many of those fine educators, not just for the knowledge that they imparted to me and others, but also for their guidance and their encouragement. I went back to Papuli High School, which I last attended 54 years ago, and the principal was showing me around. Of course, he was not principal then, and he said, "This is the classroom where you were." I saw the classroom, and I think he stretched it a little bit. And he said, "This is the desk where you sat." And I said, uh-oh, I mustn't take his thunder, because he was really stretching it. Because a desk that would have survived 54 years is quite something. But it was an absolute joy to be there. And the school that I attended there is in a much worse condition, Minister, than it was when I was there. And that broke my heart. But that propelled me to mobilize the alumni and a number of others who necessarily attended the school, and I said, let us set up a fund. Let us set up a fund to attend to improving education. Government cannot do it alone. We must join hands and be proud of the schools that we attended and do something about it now that we've become as successful as we are. That school never thought that it would produce a president. It never thought that it would produce leading scientists. It never thought it would produce leading business people. So I gathered them together and we started a fund to support not only that school but many others. But then I promised, I said, I want to go around the country to encourage those of us who have become successful to go back to our schools, to go and see how the condition of our schools. So I want to go district by district and mobilize people who have become successful to see the extent to which we can all work together with government, with education, basic education departments, to support the schools that we went to. And all these years where we all went to school, the schools still hold a special place. They should continue holding a special place in our hearts. The teacher is the devoted, tenderer gardener, nurturing our nation. Just as the diligent gardener, if you've seen what real good gardeners do, they know the special needs of each of the plant species in their garden. Teachers or educators tend to their students or learners as unique individuals, which we must do. The devoted educator gives learners their attention. They should give their learners their guidance, their encouragement and patience. I had the joy of having that in the schools that I went to. Just as a garden blooms and flourishes under the gardener's steady hand, teachers or educators play a formative role in the life of a child. And now in the new era of technology, we should know the life, the background of every child that we are meant to educate. And when the child is absent from class, the teacher should be the very first to know that this child, this precious life that I'm looking after, is not in class today. And if the child is not in class the following day and the following day, the teacher, that must ring an alarm bell in the teacher's mind. The teacher must immediately know that there's something wrong and be able to ask questions. Where is this child? Why is this learner not in class? That way we will be able to curb and to lessen the dropout rate in our schools. We all know that many of our children do not finally finish the 12 years of school. They enter school, I think they're about 1 million or 1.2 million every year, and in 12 years' time, we find, DG, you'll tell me the latest statistics, we find that only 540,000 finish school of that cohort. We need to ask ourselves, where are these hundreds of thousands of young people? So a diligent teacher, as the quintessential gardener, will know what is happening to each plant species. A good teacher is a role model who encourages a child to achieve their great potential. But a teacher who disregards their responsibilities, who rules by fear, can demoralize very easily, quickly, by one word. Just one word, one act, can quickly demoralize a child, damage their self-esteem, and put them off learning. One actor I was reading, global actor, said in one of their books that when I was at school, I was a stutterer, and the teacher stood in the front of the class and laughed at me. And that was so devastating, this global actor says. And he says, look at me today, I win Oscar awards. And if I had succumbed to that, I would have been a zero. So our words, our actions as teachers should be as nurturers, should be to encourage young people to reach their very best. Even as the teaching environment is often fraught with challenges, and we know that, we are blessed as a nation to have good, dependable, devoted teachers. The National Teaching Awards were launched in 2000 by the then Minister of Education, the late Professor Kada Asmal, to acknowledge and appreciate and also celebrate teacher excellence. The following year, Professor Asmal convened what was known as the Samtrek Conference, as we know. It brought together the country's education experts, legislators, and representatives of labor to deliberate on values, education, and democracy in the 21st century. The conference devoted considerable time to the role of educators in directing the course of national development. It referred to the nobility, the outstanding nobility of the calling that one has to become a teacher. The skills that build thriving households and communities, and that promote an active, engaged citizenry, as well as a productive workforce, are all taught in the classroom. It is in the classroom that we mold the best citizens of our country of tomorrow. Just as any nation evolves and grows, so too has the teaching profession. Our young people's needs inside the classroom reflect the circumstances and the world outside it. Teachers aren't only expected to impart textbook knowledge to their learners. They often have to be counselors. They often have to be advisors. They have to be social workers. They have to be disciplinarians as well, and surrogate parents. I spoke about this child who you may not see in your classroom. You need to ask yourself, where is this child? And become a social worker, and even go to this child's home. I forever remember the story of someone who occupied a senior position in government in later years. When I met her, I said, tell me about yourself. She told me about herself. She said, I did not finish matric when I was 19. I only finished it when I was 29. I said, what happened? She said, at 18, I had stomach problems. I had to have an operation. My internal system was not working well. And I disappeared from class. She said, the teachers did not notice that I was not in class. They did not even come home to find out why I wasn't in class. And I went through many operations. When I finally came back, I was okay now, but I was a little older. And it then took me longer to finish my matric. And then it occurred to me that the role of the teacher must be, and I want to stress this, and I've stressed it even in the past 2 award ceremonies, that our role, and I said to Minister Motshekga, then Minister of Basic Education, let us start a program to encourage teachers to follow up the children so that the dropout rate must be less and more. So teachers have to be social workers. They have, in a way, also to know the social circumstances of each of the children. You are a tenderer of that precious plant that Providence has put in our nation. In a country such as ours, with such high levels of inequality, the teaching environment of one educator may be completely different to that of another. In some schools, resources are plentiful. The schoolyard is safe. There are all the basic amenities. The pupil-teacher ratio is appropriate, and learning takes place in good conditions. They have all the facilities. But in others, educators struggle to obtain even the most basic resources for teaching. Schools lack safe toilets and running water, and crime and violence from outside the school inevitably finds its way inside the schoolyard. We have made much progress as a country in narrowing the gaps between our schools. But because the task is so huge, with almost 25,000 schools, and with a budget, and as Minister Kwahube actually articulates it well, with our fiscal challenges being so constrained, we have to make sure that we go much further and do much more with the less that we have. We are working to strengthen the foundations of early learning now. And I often say that one of the big errors we made as a nation is to delay the inauguration of early childhood development. We are late by a number of decades. What we are doing now and what we seek to do now to focus on early child development, we should have done decades ago. But as they say in the classics, better late than never. And so we are now doing it. This is to ensure successful education outcomes in the future by starting off early. The education curriculum is being revised, and clearly with your active participation and your active involvement, it is being updated and reformed to meet the needs of a rapidly changing world. With a high rate of youth unemployment in our country, educators need to ensure that our schools are producing the skills that our economy needs. Our schools must be focused on the future. And as we look at every learner, we must ask ourselves, are we equipping these children for the future? I forever remember the story of Alexander the Great, who his father decided should be educated by Aristotle, the philosopher. It was when he migrated from being taught by mediocre teachers and was put under the tutelage of Alexander the Great that his education world just broadened. And Alexander the Great, and together with those who were growing up with him, learning with him under the great philosopher, then went out to rule almost a third of the world. And this happened because they were taught by this great philosopher. Even after his early death, Alexander the Great, those he was taught with continued to rule that third of the world for 300 years. So as educators, we need to be focused on saying our success rate, our performance outcomes must be to equip these children and to make them fly like eagles. And that should be our task. Educators need to ensure that every school learner has the confidence, the capabilities that enable them to study further as well, to find employment or to be self-employed. We're working to fully implement the three-stream model, which offers academic, vocational, and occupational pathways for learners. And it's a joy to listen to the Premier of Gauteng speaking so glowingly and knowingly about exactly what is happening in the education. I'm glad that even as Premier, he still has, this hangover. He doesn't quite forget that he used to be MEC of Education. It's taking long to wean him out of that sector. And the warmongering will lessen as time goes on. But it is this. Educators play an important role in identifying the best course or journey for each learner. And that is the contribution that we should make. To produce more learners who excel in science, in maths, in technology and engineering subjects, we need to invest more in teacher support ourselves, Minister, to make sure that there's resource provision and teacher skilling. The passage of the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act is part of ongoing efforts to build an education system that is more effective and that is also more equitable. Among others, the Act provides for early learning foundations to be strengthened, to promote greater accountability also of the parents for their children's learning, and promotes inclusivity in the classroom. The spirit and purpose of this new legislation is to ensure that there is uniformity and fairness in educational standards between schools and across the nation. In the interest of inclusivity, we have created space for engagement among some concerned parties on aspects of the legislation. When I gave that 3-month window, some people thought I've gone mad. But I do so because, as Minister Gwahube was saying right at the beginning, we are building not only a unity government, but we want to build a nation. We want to unite the people of South Africa to work together, to collaborate together, to have consensus, and to have a national unity of purpose so that we can move together forward. And in order to do so, we've got to hear all voices. We've got to listen to one another and not talk past one another, whatever our views may be. And for me, it's a great joy to lead this government made up of 10 political parties who all have different views, who used to hate each other in the beginning. They were prepared to fight to the death. And today, it's a joy to see them fight for each other's lives. That's what is now happening. And where one of them says, people say, I am happy to be minister. He says, Mr. President, they are lying. I am very happy to be in this position. So this is we're trying to rekindle the magic of who we are as South Africans. And even as we may seem to have intractable problems, and whatever they may be, what we should do is to see how best we build a consensus around common issues that affect all of us. But of course, the process cannot undermine the transformational nature of what we need to do, and I call on each of you to support the implementation of this law so that our children can receive the best quality education regardless of their circumstances. Many nations that are succeeding today succeed because their education has been put on a much higher level. And we spend a considerable amount of money on education. Education continues to top our budget, and that will continue. Yes, much as we have fiscal constraints, and I'm glad that the minister is ready and willing to get into the boxing ring with the Minister of Finance. And just, not only because she's a woman, and women, the women are able to hold a knife on its sharpest end. And so I pity Minister Godongwana because he's going to confront a woman who will hold that fiscal knife and hold it effectively to ensure that we continue to support the work that you do in your schools as you produce the best that South Africa will ever have, its people. Now, to all educators who will be acknowledged here today, I'd like to say congratulations. You have done your profession really proud. Continue to strive for excellence and be assured of our full support. I do quite a bit in education, and education is top of mind of everything that I do. So you have my absolute complete support, and that's why I was prepared to listen to the 17 points that Minister Gwahube brought to me. The very first meeting, she used to sit as a chief whip. Chief whip, when they sit across and they're in opposition, they look at you with a measure of, some anger and all that. Now, we are so sweet to each other. It's amazing. It's wonderful. So, my support for her, for Dr. Mhaula's work, and for all of you in the department, my support is unequivocal. It is there, and will always want to give you the maximum support. So I thank you, all of you, for the work that you continue to do. You are the finest and the best resource that we have because you produce people who are going to take this country forward. And I want you to continue to do it with great diligence, with commitment, with love, with passion, with compassion, with, the best that you can give, because this is what we need. And today is World Teachers' Day. It is a day on which we unite with people across the globe in celebrating those amongst us who are so important to our shared future. Now, to the teachers of South Africa, we congratulate you. We celebrate you today. This is your special day. And we thank you for all that you have done. In difficult circumstances, you are the ones who've stood firm. And I must not forget that it was during COVID, and I don't know if Minister Angel Mutsaga is here today. It was during COVID that she stood as a warrior in our meetings as we were managing the COVID crisis. And she said, President, the children must go back to school. Education cannot be stuck. We must make sure that the children go back. And many of you went back at risk, at great risk, wearing masks or not, sanitizers or not, you took the risk. And I want to applaud you and I want to thank you for being the real warriors of building our nation. So once again, I say thank you and continue doing the great work that you're doing. So thank you very much.
If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content like this. And as always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.